This goes really deep in the transition from $5 million business to a $10 million business, which you might not think some of the listeners here will resonate with or they'll think about it. But I think just in life, to be aware of what leads to things coming unstuck at whatever level, whether you're a new business owner, whether you're an employee, just understanding the pain of that transition.
10 million turnover is where you start to see a change. And businesses that appreciate that they need, business operators who appreciate that they need to change the way in which they operate the business, that the style of running a business needs to change.
And what are effective ways to navigate that while minimizing the burden of said pain? And then also how to present what you do in life in a way that empowers people to make a decision to solve that problem through you. They say business is an incredibly lonely endeavor.
The thing about businesses is that they are all unique.
You come home, you want to celebrate with your partner, but they don't truly understand what it's like. You have pain, you have challenges, you want to go to them for support, to your families, to your friends. They don't have the solutions. So this is a podcast about connecting the humanity of business and surrounding yourself with people that understand.
That with the advent of technology and open banking movement, banks will eventually become more quasi-wholesalers of banking facilities, and there'll be more and more, I suppose, intermediaries of different types sitting in between in the case of business, the business operators and the banks, be it sort of technology, API and that sort of thing, and SaaS, service as a service, software as a service.
Yeah.
So all that will see the way that banks deliver what they do to their clients, their customers change. And a lot of that's been driven by a combination of technology and compliance. For banks, compliance costs are just going through the roof.
Yeah.
And so what that means is they will have to change the way they do things because regulatory oversight will mandate it. The costs for not following regulatory requirements and controls are becoming increasingly prohibitive to the type of relationship type banking that business owners might have been used to. So more and more business operators will find that they're merely the bank will say, you want to borrow $1 million? Here's a portal. Go and upload your information in there. Yeah, and the frontline relationship banker, which is a role I used to do, will sort of very much disappear in many ways because it's an expensive model. And it's risky. The minute you have a person involved, you run the risk of running foul of regulations, and that becomes costly for banks. And regulatory oversight is already costing them a lot more than it used to. So I'm looking to help businesses better interact with their banks. But that change, when it starts to happen, will happen quite quickly. It's a matter of when it starts. I think we heard on the news, was it last year or earlier this year, that account number portability is going to become a thing very soon. So have you heard of the idea of account number portability?
No.
So it's a bit like with your phone bank, with the mobile phone numbers. About a few years ago now, the regulators in the telco industry mandated that all the mobile phone operators allowed you to take your phone number with you when you change providers. So now, if you change providers, you go from O2 to Spark to, are they One? I think One New Zealand used to be Vodafone. You keep your same phone number now. That didn't used to be the case. That will happen with bank account numbers. And once that happens, then your ability to change banks becomes a lot easier. And so suddenly, and also the technology around how you access banking is changing. What we're seeing in Europe is, for example, your internet banking app on your phone. At the moment, that's issued by your bank, whether it be ANZ or BNZ or Westpac or whoever that might be. In due course, what you'll find is you'll have a third-party provider banking app, and you might have an ANZ transactional account and a BNZ savings account and your Westpac home loan and your ASB credit card all on the one app. And you'll be able to transfer funds between them in real time. So all these technologies are going to change the way banks deliver what they do. And then as that happens, for business operators, the onus will go back to the business owners to provide a better analysis about the business. Yeah. So
Well,
I could go on and on about it.
No. Well, we hadn't really started the podcast, but it sounds like you started the podcast.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
let's say we started.
You can. Yeah. Fair enough.
I mean, it was a good opener.
Okay.
I was talking to my flatmate the other day, and they were talking about this app that is they pull the information from the bank and know your transactions, and then target you with ads by selling that information to different corporations.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Which is kind of crazy. What do you think is the reason for the move to, like, what makes you think that it's going to go the way that you think it's going to go? Like, where did that come from in your mind?
Well, a couple of reasons. So technology will enable it. As technology evolves, the regulators will then mandate that the banks adapt the technology as it evolves, as it emerges, to provide better outcomes for the banking customers. And so it's a combination. It's a bit of a chicken or the egg, which one drives which, but the regulations will drive the technology and the technology will drive the regulations. For a variety of reasons about protecting privacy, but also giving the business operators, and the retail banking customers, mortgage holders and savings account holders, better rights over their own information and who can and can't access that information, and equally being able to say to your bank, I want you to make that information available to this other third party so that this party can provide me a service through an app or through some sort of technology. That's what I've been reading in terms of what's happening in Europe. So that's certainly what appears to be happening. And the banks need to change because the way they've been doing things is increasingly costly. So I left my relationship banking role about 2.5 years ago. So a few months ago, I was talking to the guy who took over from me, and he was saying that the amount of his time every week or every day spent dealing with compliance now is about 60% of his time. Now, when I left, it was about 25%. So in 2.5 years, we've seen a huge skyrocket in the amount of time that frontline bankers are spending dealing with compliance. And that's costly. And so the banks will want to look at ways to do things differently. And the technology will enable it, and the regulators will insist that they do other things differently as well as technology evolves to enable that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because, being in financial advisor for a while, you kind of you're quite au fait of these. Like, there's these other organisations that are finally having to have the rigor that we've had to have with anti-money laundering and things like that. Yeah. So, and then you look at these large institutions, they've got these legacy technologies. They don't necessarily want to innovate. They want to maintain the status quo, but then compliance is forcing them, so they cut people and cut costs. Yep. What is there any interesting innovations around the world that you're coming across that, I don't know, just fun? Maybe not fun, or how are they solving the compliance issue in Europe? Well,
I think, a lot of it is using technology, and I suspect the things like ChatGPT and AI, which I don't pretend to understand in any way, shape, or form, but certainly that sort of adaptive technology and software will better enable banks to make to change the way banks make decisions, to increasingly automate a lot of decision making, which has currently been made by people like myself and my colleagues or my ex-colleagues within the bank, and the onus will be pushed back to the business owners in the case of business to justify why, for example, why it makes sense for that business operator or that business to borrow, let's just say $1 million or however much it might be, and equally why it makes sense for the bank or the funder, the investor to invest that money. The other part of it is the emergence of non-bank funders. As technology evolves, it'll enable people with money who are looking to invest to find people who are looking for investment. So you find that in due course, it might, if you're a business operator, it might be that you get your funding through a bank or through a finance company, or it might be you get it through some other avenue from someone who's got spare cash and is looking to invest in businesses. And for example, apps and portals will evolve and adapt and be developed, which might be more like almost like a dating website. you bring together two parties. The banks have always just been an intermediary. They're a wholesaler, so they borrow from Joe Bloggs, who's got money on deposit, and then they lend it out to Jane Smith, who wants to buy a home, and they're just the intermediary, and they clip the ticket. But technology will enable, in some cases, for those people who've got money to invest, rather than investing at the bank, they'll just invest it directly with a business, for example, or with someone else. So there'll be technologies that'll regulations will need to evolve, and I'm sure they will around that as well.
Slowly.
Slowly, always slowly. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I see like these different lending opportunities and how people are always, trying to make money in some components. So I can see the average investor, if there's minimal friction, would do that. From a compliance component, that'd be interesting. It's you've got this marketplace of sorts where you are investing or providing funding.
Yeah.
You already have peer-to-peer lending. So I guess it's just the efficiency and accuracy of what you're lending to, like the transparency of how the business is run. You got to talk to Bob to know that his books are fucked.
Yeah. And over the last 30 years, or probably longer, through I suppose deregulation of the banking industry in the late 80s, competitive pressure meant that banks took more and more of the responsibility for, or the onus of, analysing the business that they're lending to determine whether or not it's a good, whether or not the risk reward is right, both for the borrower and for the bank, and that will unwind, and that onus will go back to the business owners to actually justify why, to provide the information in a meaningful way. And that's the challenge, really, I think, for business owners. There's a guy called Cameron Bagri, if you've heard of him. He's another economic commentator, and he talked on the TV about a year ago about the bankability of small business, and it was an interesting term. I'd not heard of it before, but it certainly sort of pricked my ears up when I heard it, because it's very much the sort of thing I've been trying to say recently. And I'd use the term investability, because banks are investors. So whether it's a bank or someone else who's looking to lend a business money, it's a form of investment. So I'd say investability, but small to medium businesses need to get far better at the way in which they understand their own financial numbers and communicate that and analyse that information and communicate it to whoever the interested parties may be, whether it be a bank or another investor.
Yeah, because it'll be a real art. Like I can see the movement for the avoidance of accountability by large institutions because of the cost of compliance. Like guy we had on, Clive Fernandez from National Capital, they're essentially a middleman to the fund managers.
Right, okay.
So they're a digital advice platform that, spits out recommendations, and it's not complicated. Like, I still don't get why financial advisors, apart from holding people's hands, exist. But, so they're the matchmaker, but then the client gets the service for free. The provider pays the advisor a share of the fees that they would have had to put into compliance and managing their own team.
Okay.
So the benefit to the fund manager is that you've got all the compliance and risk on someone else while still having the recurring revenue of the funds under management.
Yeah, okay.
But I could see that the challenge is, though, if you're lending money to a business and you're a bank and they give inaccurate information, and then they run out of money, and your bank's what do you say to that? Like,
well, yeah, I mean that's all, but that's a risk anyway. That's a risk at the moment. So there would still need to be some sort of validation of the information that's been provided, and the manner in which that validation will happen will change as technology enables it as well. So inevitably, what will happen is if you're especially the likes of Xero and accounting software. Like that, which is very sort of forward-thinking in terms of the development of their own technologies. In due course, for example, if you're a business owner operating Xero, you'll be able to digitally just plug your financial accounts straight into your banking portal, and you'll give the bank or some intermediary access to that financial information so that they can analyse it, without sort of even these days in the bank we still largely get paper, printed out paper financial statements, and then we sort of get some, and I've done the job, a monkey analyst sort of sitting there typing the data back into a system, and that still happens now. And it's so highly inefficient, open for, I suppose, transpositional errors and other type of errors, and as technology enables the interaction of accounting software with banking or financial analysis software, the regulators will mandate that you need to be enabling this software and utilizing this software to avoid the risk that someone's entering the information incorrectly, or there's some sort of whether it be fraud or by mistake or something like that.
It's interesting. I was talking to a guy from Quantum. They make robots, employees. And they're helping a health sector, and the health sector was like, how do we know the robot's accurate? So they made a robot to analyze the robot.
Right, yeah, okay.
And the robot found inefficiencies with their filing.
Oh, yeah.
They had to go back and fix it. So it's interesting. So I don't know. You don't seem like a guy that's heavy on the tech. I was curious about the idea of cryptocurrency in some way, like the blockchain component where you can essentially validate something.
Yeah.
So you plug in all this information. You have this business that has its unique token, shall we say.
Yeah.
And it's validated because, got the historic transactions, it's public, it's accessible. And then that communicates to the institutions to get the funding, or to the marketplace of businesses that can do it.
Yeah, possibly.
I was looking at your face going, fuck it. What are you
I mean, I don't pretend to understand blockchain or crypto at all, and I've tried, and it just, I don't know, I'm not smart enough, or it goes over my head or something like that. It's certainly, the whole crypto thing is very, very interesting. I mean, I studied economics all through school, and studied about the history of money and the properties of money and all this sort of thing. And crypto crypto doesn't really fit that model of I suppose if you've studied that at an academic level in any way. It's sort of crypto there's a lot of things that don't make sense. It has to be acceptable. Well, it's only acceptable by a few people at the moment. It has to be recognizable. Well, I mean, I guess it's recognizable if you've got the software that recognizes it, but you and I can't recognize it because it doesn't exist in a tangible form. So there's certain things about crypto that make no sense. But if I had the chance to go back 15 years and tell myself to buy some crypto, I'd certainly tell myself, don't worry about the fact that it doesn't make sense. Do it anyway.
I would still say not to do it. I've not bought crypto. I don't because every time I've sort of thought of it, I've thought, no, it just doesn't make sense to me. But then who knows? Yeah. Yeah, well, I try to stay curious about new innovation. It's like when the internet comes out, everyone's like, that's gobbledygook. Social media comes out. And my interest isn't in the means of payment. It seems like some governments are going that way because, more control.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about blockchain in itself, so let's say you have, and we'll move off this topic because you're like, I want to talk about economics with you. Actually.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
But you said you studied it.
I enjoyed economics. I wasn't good at it.
Okay, maybe don't do that. But so like smart contracts, think about you and I have a contract that's digital.
Yeah.
And the execution of the contract isn't reliant on you and I. It's system orientated.
Yeah.
So let's say we buy something together. And then every time there's profit, every time there's certain criteria met, the distributions are just paid.
Yeah, okay.
And it's automated by the system, and it's an intelligent contract.
Right.
Another option is, how like people like buy Gucci and shit like that.
Oh, yeah.
How do you know that's not from Thailand?
Yeah, don't know.
So the part of the other benefit of blockchain is that you have proof of ownership.
Yeah.
So you can show off to your friends, because we're all just social animals being like, hey, look at me with my pretty thing.
Yeah.
We all do it on a different component, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's where I think it's quite interesting in terms of the validation of ownership and the execution of agreements. Also another one, and we'll move off this, is let's say you want to vote. I don't know if you ever had a large conglomerate of people trying to come to a decision. It's fucking a bit of an art.
Yeah.
So you can have weighted distributions of the value of each vote. So each person has a vote worth a certain amount. And then when you deliver the thing that needs to be polled or voted on, it will be executed by people that have proof of what that voting thing they own. So it's not just a random person hacking. It's like you own this vote.
Yep.
They all come in instantaneous. Well, when the person can fucking vote. So there's opportunity with that.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyways, so what if not economics? What would your passion or skill be? Do you think?
Oh, I mean, I suppose my passion is business. You know, if my perfect job, I think, would be if I could spend half my time just sitting talking to people about their businesses, and the other half helping businesses, mid-sized businesses, I suppose. Startups, I think, it's a very different skill set. But mid-sized businesses, you know, that are looking to grow, and work with those businesses, and even sort of, if necessary, step into like a GM role for 6 months or something, help a business that's in trouble. That's really my passion. Yeah.
So what do you think that stems from? Like the desire to, like, what about business is so interesting? Were you like playing with trucks as a kid and you're like, if I sell this, I make $10?
Oh no, I mean, I suppose just. I suppose just the way my career ended up going, I sort of ended up in business banking. It just really, it just really interested me. So sort of I got into.
Were you dropped as a kid or?
Maybe. I don't know about
banking,
well, maybe not by my parents, probably by my brother. But and probably not on accident. But no, I think the idea of that someone or a group of people can come together and deliver produce a service or a product and in some way add value to someone else's lives, but also build value within the business itself to the point that business is in and of itself something that can then be, sold eventually and to add value to the shareholders, and particularly family-owned businesses. I think is my sort of my focus or my
You know Ian Blakely?
I don't.
He owns Family Business New Zealand. He's a good guy to meet if you like family businesses.
Okay.
I've had a coffee with him this week.
Oh yeah, okay, I know that'd be cool. Yeah, but So that's sort of and throughout my career, 25, almost 30 years now. Most of my time has been spent dealing in business, corporate business banking and commercial banking, dealing with business owners. And when I'm dealing with someone who you come across someone or plenty of people who have started a business and they've built it over the years, and it's really about sort of family and adding value to creating a business that has a value, building that shareholder value ultimately for the benefit of their family, and giving people jobs along the way that help other people feed their families and put roofs over their heads and do all that sort of stuff. That's really what interests me, and those are the type of people I really like dealing with. Interesting,
helping family. I'm a bit of a deep fellow that you might be freaking out because I might ask you the question, but
okay.
The family part, was it your family ever in need of financial support and it would have done a lot for their life, or what about family became so important for you? I
don't know. No, I mean, my dad was. I would say I grew up in middle class North Shore. I'm from
Palmerston North.
Okay. So I grew up in Browns Bay, over on the North Shore. So no, I mean, I think I had a sort of a reasonably sort of, dare I say it, privileged life in many ways. And I count myself lucky. But my dad was an accountant by qualification, although never worked as an accountant. That was before I was born that he worked as an accountant. But
side tangent, my dad got a role as an accountant at a race course, but he's never done accounting.
Okay. He
was a jockey.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, anyway. So
So I don't know what it was necessarily. I think it was just a combination of factors. Economics always interested me at school, even though, as I said, wasn't necessarily very good at it. It still interested me. School, I wasn't very good at school, full stop. So and just I suppose I fell into banking almost, and came across business banking, and that seemed interesting. So I sort of got into that part of banking and spent most of my career there. And that just I can't tell you why. It just seemed to ring a chord with me. Yeah,
it's interesting. I mean, because like you think about school, like if you weren't doing too well, you wouldn't feel too good, especially if your father's heavy on the education component with accounting.
Yeah.
And then getting because for someone to be motivated to help, you seem very relationship heavy sort of bloke. Like you seem to care and want to help people.
Yeah.
Which I think usually comes from pain, experiencing pain. So when you see it in others, you want to really alleviate it in a way. You don't have to agree with that. I feel like you don't do much introspection of your soul, my friend.
Maybe I don't. Yeah, maybe I need to do more of that.
Yeah, maybe not. We'll move on. Yeah.
But no, you're right. I didn't enjoy school. I did not want to go to university. But I also didn't want to I wasn't allowed to drop out, so I went right through till 7th form. And then at the end of 7th form, really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I heard an advert on the radio for a diploma in business at Unitec. And it was only 2 years rather than the 3 or 4 years at university. So I thought, that'll do. I'll go and inquire. And I signed up and I came home and I said, I'm going to Unitec. And my parents were like, okay, good. And then funnily enough, I think it was in my second semester there. I was looking for. I had an elective that I had to fill, and someone said, "Do fundamentals of banking." The tutor's really good, and so I thought, okay, I'll do that, and really enjoyed it. And his name was Graham Treasure, funnily enough. So it was a good name for a banking tutor. And so I took a few more of his papers over the years and got interested in banking. So that's how I got into banking, and then from there. Actually got a job in banking, and then that was the late 90s, and now here we are. And
you hide it well, brother. What's so like with business in school? Do you think it's something you can learn? If not, what is lacking in a diploma in business in this sense? Like, like how people do the MBA, whatever the fuck. I'm like
MBA. I did that.
You did that too?
I've done that. Yeah.
What do you learn? Like, because I find a lot of it's belief system and skills through work.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
you can disagree with me.
No. I mean, I think it's hard because I've wondered this too. How much of the? I don't think it's actually when you're studying. I don't know that it's what's more important. I think is going through the process of starting something, following it through to conclusion. Hopefully along the way you learn how to better analyze information and understand the importance of questioning what it is you're reading and thinking about it. So I don't know that it's so much about the content. I mean, the content's important as well, but it's also a lot about the process. And for a lot of people who do MBAs, well, no, not the one I did, because I did mine, a lot of mine was via correspondence. But for a lot of people who do MBAs, they say the best thing they get out of it is the networking opportunity. So that's quite interesting. I didn't get that so much, but
I feel like you're the guy in the corner that doesn't necessarily want to talk because you're shitting yourself. Because that's me.
Probably.
Yeah, okay.
I
feel like I'm picking on you now.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Go ahead. Well,
have you applied something from what you learned, or the process?
I think for me personally, I think a lot of what I got out of it was, you have a certain ideas and certain way of thinking, and you're not sure if you're right, and you sort of, especially when I was a bit younger in my banking career, you'd have a certain idea. You think, but maybe I'm wrong, because these people further up the corporate ladder, they must know what they're doing. They know better than me. And then you go and do some study, and you go, actually, I wasn't completely wrong about that, but maybe I was a little bit wrong about that. And so some of it is gaining confidence in your own way of thinking, but also questioning yourself as well, questioning maybe ideas about a certain topic, and
that makes sense. Like, because it's a bit out the gate, but like Jordan Peterson, I like him.
Oh yeah, yep.
And he was talking about how you're essentially insane until you talk to someone.
Okay.
Like if you think about it, if you're left alone to your own devices, talking to yourself, conceptualizing things without any sort of two-way stimulus.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that because like if you start a business,
Mm.
it's pretty lonely. You're accountable to yourself. There's nowhere to hide.
Yep.
And no one really gives a fuck unless you give them value in some
That's
way,
right.
financially anyways.
Yeah.
People in your life give a fuck, but
Yep.
so and then you're so busy in the work, you're not thinking about thinking, and you don't know if you're thinking the right thing. And then everyone just says whatever you want because you're paying them.
Yeah.
So you're kind of in this like echo chamber of bullshit.
Yep.
So do you apply that process to separate yourself from the skull face, or do you ever use some of the tactical things that you've learned, or interpret information, or?
Yes and no. I think from I'm not sure. I don't know the answer actually.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe I do without thinking about it. Not consciously.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, you're honest. You're an honest
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
People, I feel like you earn more respect by saying you don't know than pretending like you do and looking like an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, what's wrong with that?
Although there is also that saying, sometimes you're better off to keep your mouth shut than to open it and remove all doubt about whether or not you're an idiot. Yeah.
My mate says a wise man once said nothing at all.
That's right. Yeah.
Because you do. Like, if you just listen and talk, people think you're like, you know, Einstein in a way, because you're just asking them questions.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that, you know. What's been your business journey like? So is it 2.5 years since the personal banking when you had your business, or your personal banking as a business, or how long you been in business for now?
I've been in, so I left sort of commercial corporate banking about 2.5 years ago.
So you didn't fail.
What's that?
You didn't fail 90%
Not yet.
of the first 2 years. Or you just didn't quit.
Yeah. Admittedly, that the whole COVID lockdown that probably lasted longer than I anticipated. But part of the reason, there was a lot of changes going on that sort of, and I sort of knew I wanted to go and do something different, and I thought I probably left maybe a year sooner than I would have otherwise, but that it is what it is. And my second child was about to be born, so I was taking some time off for that. So I took some time off, did the whole family thing, and just sort of just started it slowly, and yeah.
Because like, just to give you some more confidence to dig into the pain a little bit, because a lot of businesses don't really had the opportunity to hear how people were going through it. Because so I had enough of financial advice, and I got a personal loan, 20 grand.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Yeah.
And lost money 4 times, went to zero 4 times with no potential income coming in.
Right.
And pulled it off on Friday or whatever.
Yeah,
okay. And just kept going.
Yeah,
because I kept sabotaging what I was doing because it was a projection of me.
Yeah, okay.
I never missed payroll, though, for my wanted staff.
Oh, good.
So what has been your, I guess, biggest challenge in business? What's been your...
Certainly, I would say marketing,
Okay.
And... Because I suppose in many ways, part of what I'm trying to do, the commercial funding advisory, is it's something that I can see that a lot of businesses need, but they don't necessarily appreciate a need for it. And I think that will change in time. But at the moment, the challenge, of course, is convincing a business operator to pay for something that maybe they don't understand why they need it, or they don't understand how it might be important. And marketing certainly is not my area of expertise. And so then you spend a lot of time thinking, what is the best way to market? There's a lot of different ways you can spend money on print advertising or digital advertising or networking events and all this sort of stuff. Sending out blast emails, and what works, what doesn't, and probably in many ways ended up spending so much time thinking about it but not actually just doing something. And so probably one of the things, if I was going to do it again, is I'd probably just do it all. Rather than trying to figure out which marketing initiative might have worked best, maybe just do it. Instead of thinking about whether or not I should, because you don't want to do it and have it not work.
Yeah, I'm learning that now. Like so I did a post the other day about, I want to have 200 catch-ups by the 15th of December.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah,
I saw it. Good. Yeah, and I did that yesterday, and now I've got 16 coffees coming up. Cool. For no reason, just shooting the shit to see what happens.
Yeah.
And so much of my time was protecting my fear, in the sense that I would find rationalizations not to do what I need to do.
Yeah, okay.
because it's very hard. Like, you can be smart enough to conceptualize the future and to think of all the different scenarios, but it's hard to know. Listening to you talk now, though, like, I agree on the whole work thing. I'm wondering, have you heard of a book called $100 Million Office?
No, I haven't.
It's by Alex Mosey, because most of my sales career I've had to sell what was given to me.
Okay.
But now I can create something.
Right.
And so I use that book as a guide to make it more compelling.
Okay.
Because listening to you talk, it is quite hard to communicate that.
Yep.
Like, what would you think the biggest problem? Like, so you're giving funding to businesses, huh?
Well, no, I'm not giving funding. What I'm looking to do is help businesses better communicate the financial information about their business.
Okay.
And so to be able to communicate, hopefully to understand it better. A lot of business operators, mid-sized business operators, they'll get their P&L, their balance sheet at the end of the year from their accountant. They'll have a quick look at it. They'll look at the bottom line. Oh yeah, we made a profit. Put it in the drawer and then forget about it. So ideally, sort of get business owners to better understand the numbers, the importance of, and the importance of having a plan around what the business is going to do over the next few years, and how and what impact that's going to have on the balance sheet. So start getting a bit sort of boring, sort of boring accounting sort of talk there. Well, maybe boring for some people, not for others. I guess I find it interesting, but I think a lot of other people sort of obviously go, "Oh, the numbers stuff." No, I just want to get out there and sell my product or build whatever I build. So helping business owners to better understand the importance of being able to communicate that information about their business, and also very closely tied into that is having a strategy and being able to communicate the strategy about what the business is looking to achieve over the next sort of 3-5 years, as an example, and being able to communicate that strategy both internally within sort of the staff and the team and everyone in the business, and externally to other business partners, whether it be their accountant, their solicitor, their other advisors, and their bank or other investors. So that's really, I suppose, the focus from the commercial funding side of it. But equally, I've sort of, through opportunities, started to sort of, I suppose, not deviate from that, but look at the wider aspect of helping businesses to grow. One of my clients, actually, these guys, I'm wearing their t-shirt. Upyield. So they're a digital marketing agency based out of Amsterdam. And so what we end up doing for them is actually providing contract finance admin. So they don't need necessarily to employ someone full time to do their finance admin. So I've got contractors that actually provide that, and it'll vary from sort of 8 to 10 to 12 to 20 hours a week. So really trying to look at more of a, I don't want to say holistic, because I don't know that that's really the right term, but for want of a better term, approach to helping growing businesses in a variety of different ways, providing services, whether that be stepping into the role of a part-time GM or finance advisor or finance manager, in terms of helping the business managing its cash flow for a time until they're big enough to employ someone full-time to do that, or if that's the angle they're going down, but helping businesses to grow and helping businesses to add shareholder value. So that's really the focus of what I'm trying to do. So it's not even though my background is in banking, really as a banker, I'd say my background is in managing business risk and help. So now what I'm looking to do is, instead of working in the bank and helping the bank and its clients manage business risk, do that directly for the business operators, and just a slight change of focus. So that's really sort of the avenue. If that makes sense.
It was long.
Sorry.
But it made sense.
You can probably edit that down a bit. I'm sure you will.
It's good. Well, I think almost your thought process is valuable to the listener, because you don't actually get, because I heard through you talking was a person that came with an idea that went to the market and has adjusted over time.
Yep.
And is sort of torn between these two worlds in a way.
Yeah. And And well, yeah, maybe not torn between them, possibly at first, but now I've sort of come to think, well, actually, no, it makes sense to be able to offer, I suppose, a more bespoke offering depending on what a particular business might need. And it's really a business service, to help growing businesses. Really, you put it that simply. And for many growing businesses, what do they need? Sometimes they need additional resources in the term of people to do processing, finance, admin. Other times they need help to communicate information about their business to a funding partner to get an outcome.
Interesting, because like I've heard of like the CFO for hire in a way, but it's not quite what you do. Are you limited to just the financial component? Is that where you want to stay in that pocket? Like, or would you come in and what else do they do in business? You got admin, you got fucking sales, you got...
Yeah, so there, I mean, not sales, because I think there are plenty of people who understand sales far better than I do. But equally, I suppose I consider myself... dare I say it, an expert in business, not an expert in sales, not an expert in marketing, not an expert in HR or accounting or law, but ideally being able to bring all those experts together and help business operators potentially identify other experts in those fields, and also identify aspects of their business where they could be doing things better or differently. And I think for a lot of business owners, they end up getting caught fighting fires, and getting caught up in the day-to-day need to do this, turn up on Monday morning with all the best intentions of the world of, the old saying, working on their business, but they end up working in their business. And a lot of that can come down to a lack of planning or a lack of appreciation from business owners of the importance of planning. And then planning is part of the communication piece as well. Planning it and then documenting that plan, so that others can understand it.
Well, it landed for me when you said growing businesses with pain. Because you think of the people that get beyond a certain point and they're like, we're transitioning between where we want to be and where we've been, but we don't necessarily have the skill set or time to jump between those two things. Here's someone we trust that can facilitate those relationships. That makes sense. There's like the same guy that wrote $100 million offers. Oh, it's hell. That's fucking weird noise.
Someone tapping on your window.
Yeah, like they're coming for me, bro. Acquisition.com, they buy businesses, but what they do is they identify the biggest issue in the business.
Okay.
And then they find the who to solve that issue.
Right, yep.
So provided you got a network or a means of recruiting or facilitating that connection, or they've also got a team as well. They've got their organization's only like 15 people, but they're making like $80 million a year or whatever.
Right, okay.
And they have like CFOs that come in temporarily while they're recruiting this person, and then the real person comes in.
Yep.
And that's a really valuable model. Is that kind of what would you...
Yeah, so something along that lines. Yeah.
Do you had that network, or do you know how to recruit?
Well, I'm hoping that over time I'll build that.
Okay.
So
but that's where you want to go?
Yeah.
Because I could see you coming in, looking at the numbers, having a strategic overview from your experience in commercial banking.
Yep.
And you could even help mentor the business owner in some sense.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the time to think about those things. But then, you'd have to go project to project, and would you be the right person to be sitting in that role, or are you a better person to facilitate that role?
Oh, I think it would depend on the business. So, really, maybe not, depending on the business. So I think I would look to sort of determine on a case-by-case basis whether or not I could do that, whether or not I could get someone else in who'd be better placed to do it.
Interesting.
But on that point, I think what I've noticed over however many years I've been sort of dealing with business operators, businesses get to roughly $5 million in turnover, and your typical business might take 20, 30 years to get there, and then the next $5 million of turnover happens from 5 to 10 million might happen in 3 years. And so the rate at which they increase profitability changes. And as that happens, turnover, I should say. But as that happens, the scale of the business changes as well. And the behaviours that have helped them get from nothing to $5 million in turnover, and then potentially even to $10 million in turnover, where they've maybe got sort of 20, 25 employees. Where everything's a bit sort of loose and everyone just works as a family, and it's all just done by everything gets done because everyone just takes ownership and gets on and gets it done. That doesn't scale well. And so what I've seen so many times is businesses that get to that 10 million in turnover, and their turnover continues to grow, but increasingly they become more inefficient because they haven't changed the style in which they're operating the business to suit a bigger business with more people and multiple sites. There's a lot more room then for inefficiencies. So ideally what I'm looking to do is work with those businesses to help them to better understand the importance of documenting, getting process documented in terms of, the finance admin, for example, and change the way and appreciate the importance of documenting, of having a strategy and having that documented. So that's it's interesting that around about that 5 to 10 million turnover is where you start to see a change, and businesses that appreciate that they need, business operators who appreciate that they need to change the way in which they operate the business, that the style of running a business needs to change. Those that understand that and embrace that and look to change are the ones that actually see greater success. And I mean, so they might see increasing revenue, but not necessarily increasing profitability.
That's interesting. I ignore you for periods of time because I push a button.
That's right.
We've done 45 minutes.
Okay.
Believe it. Hey, you didn't think you could talk that long?
No, I didn't. Yeah.
But so you're very clear on who you help, and that seems to me be a real clear pain. Like, it's not something I deal with. One man band. I don't know what I'm doing yet. Yeah. But then that transition from face-to-face chatting, like I was talking to, I don't know if you know Richard Conway from Pure SEO.
No.
They've got 100-odd employees.
Okay.
And he was talking about that transition from the face-to-face communication to the systemization and the communication from the top down to leadership to the team, because you can't talk to everyone one-on-one.
Yeah, okay.
So I can see there being a huge pain in that. Because when you first said it, it's very hard to, for lack of a better word, make it sound sexy.
Yeah.
It's hard to sell that,
and it's hard to articulate. I actually sort of spent some time over the last couple of years, and I came up with this analogy, and I've actually got a little graphic I put on my website of a delivery truck. Okay. Right, you think of sort of you got roughly the three components to a delivery truck. You've got the engine, where the cabin where the driver sits, and the tray at the back where your boxes or whatever it is, your goods that you're carrying go on. And if you say to most business owners, most small to medium business owners, you go, if that truck is your business, what part of your business is the engine room? And most of the business owners, if they're an engineering shop, they'll point to the workshop. If they're a distributor wholesaler, they'll point to their warehouse. And my take on that is actually no, those parts of the business, the workshop, the distribution warehouse, the courtyard where their equipment is stored, that's actually the tray of the truck, where that's the part of the machine that's used to deliver an outcome to your clients. The engine is the part of the business where the fuel of the business, which is money, is measured, managed, and controlled. And as businesses grow, I think it's important that they put an increasing emphasis on the finance department, the part of the business that actually manages cash flow through the business, understands the impact, helps, and the better they can manage that part of their business, and the better they can actually extract financial information and understand that information, the better they can then ensure that their business is running more efficiently, in the same way that a machine, whether it be a diesel delivery truck, is using fuel and making sure that fuel is being used efficiently for business operators, managing how money runs through their business, how cash flow affects their business, and how decisions that they make about their business affect cash flow.
That's a good analogy. I like it.
Yeah.
So just on the, let's say, going on the 5 to 10 mil, that transition.
Yeah.
Because it's very clear on where you're going. The engine. What makes that transition to 5 to 10 makes the financial part so important? Is that the really important part that comes unstuck, or what comes unstuck, or it's different?
I think really what it is for smaller businesses where you've got the business operator, and they're across everything, and they're talking to everyone in their business every day, and maybe they've got 20, 25 employees, and that's quite easy to operate more on that sort of family. They operate as a family, the way the interactions between different people within the business. And I think, as I sort of mentioned earlier, as a business it grows, and suddenly you get sort of 30 to 40 to 50 to 100 employees potentially across multiple sites. That way of operating a business doesn't scale, and so business operators need to think of different ways to I suppose, to run their business, and really in some ways, it's a hard distinction to make between, for example, a let's just say a widget manufacturing business to a business that just happens to be in the business of manufacturing widgets. So where is the emphasis from a business operator's point of view? Is the emphasis when you're running a business on the product or the service that you're delivering directly, or is it in applying business management principles to the operation of the business? And it just so happens that the business, for the time being, is operating in the industry of manufacturing, distributing widgets. So it's a hard sort of distinction to make. But at some point, businesses and business operators who can think about that and understand that will then be able to put in place better processes to manage business risk. And the better you manage business risk, the more profit you're going to make, essentially. And if you've got a third-party investor, whether it be someone like a bank or someone wanting to buy your business or invest in your business, who comes along and looks at your business and sees that you've got the processes, the protocols, everything documented and in place, risk management policies and strategies, and an overarching business strategy, it becomes a far more, as a business in and of itself, becomes a far more appealing and lower risk investment. And also what that means is for the business operators, if they choose to, or if something happens to them and they need to sell the business and they need to exit, if that is all done, if those business processes are in place so that the business can then operate without the key people, it then becomes something in and of itself that is transferable to new owners, and that deleverages the risk for the business owners, and also for other investors.
Yeah, okay. So now it makes more sense to me. So, getting in front of the 5 to 10 million people, it's not out of the realm of possibility. You just got to ask in a way that they see it as valuable for you to come to meet you.
Yeah.
And then I think about, okay, how do you convey your credibility and talent?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, is there a free thing you could do, or something you could do to demonstrate or identify a problem in what they do?
Yeah. That's the challenge, because it takes a lot of time.
Oh yeah, how much time?
Well, it could be days, hours, weeks sometimes to really spend with a business to really understand their particular unique business. And that's the thing about businesses, is that they are all unique. And being able to understand the business, the dynamics between the various parties within the business, who does what and how and why and what processes they have, and so that's really the challenge, is the amount of time that it takes to really understand in what way a business needs support for that unique business. So that's the challenge.
Do you think the weeks you lose investing and understanding them is more than the months you lose not having a client?
Probably, yeah. Well, yeah. Well,
Because it's balanced. You have this self-worth
Yep.
and this value.
Yep.
And if they're dickhead, like you filter them, you're talking to Bob, and Bob has the wrong values, and you're like, I'm not going to give him anything for free. I don't like him. And then you go next Bob or Sarah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I just think, like, if I was you, and you didn't come on here for me to give.
No, go ahead. Hey, look, and I'm open to all sorts of ideas and feedback, and I think it's important to be when you're in business. You got to listen.
Yeah. No, well, it's a good way to approach things.
Yeah.
So one, finding them, which Sales Navigator is linked in. It'll tell you how much money they're making, give or take, and you could search by employee size.
Yeah.
So you know where they are. You can engage with them on their content, adding value in that way, and then connection request for coffee. Or you could start a podcast that's specific to that niche. So
okay.
New Zealand, mid-sized New Zealand or some shit. The credibility's in the name.
Yeah.
You shoot the shit, you understand their business, see if you get a vibe with them.
Yeah.
As long as you got a way to deliver it as a good experience for them, then you meet for coffee. The art will become however you get to the coffee part, demonstrating you know what you're talking about, because you've done it 2.5 years, you got all this commercial banking, but where's your mid-sized business? You're going to tell me about mine? You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have that fucking...
Yeah.
So that's why I was pushing on the free thing or a discounted thing.
Yep.
We'll do your... Like, our project's worth this. I believe in you. I feel like I can solve this thing.
Yep.
Or it could even be a guarantee, I'll do a $10,000, assessment of your business.
Yep.
If you're not happy, no risk.
Yeah.
And then then the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
So I'm just throwing that at you.
No, that's all right. That's good. Yeah.
Ideas.
Yeah.
So 12:06, someone's coming in and we've done an hour of recording.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So what would, I guess, let's say the 5 to 10 million persons listening, what's a process they can go through to try and recognize, or who should they, how do they identify the problem and how do they go about finding the solution? Is there like a framework you go through? It's an easy question.
Yeah. Again, I think because every business is different, it's sort of it's really from their point of view. I think there needs to be an openness to look at doing things differently to the way they've done it. And there's and being prepared to be questioned and challenged. I find that a lot of business owners, the minute you start saying, you're trying to suggest that they do something different, that they get defensive. And who are you coming in and telling me how to run my business? I've been running it for 30 years. But equally in the same breath, they'll also tell you that their business has changed so significantly in the last 3 years or 5 years that it's a different business. And going back to that analogy of the truck, I use the analogy, well, you could have been driving that delivery truck for 20 years, but then a diesel mechanic comes along and says, oh, there's something we can do with your engine to make it run more efficiently. That expert doesn't necessarily have had to have ever seen your particular truck before to know that there are things that can be done differently to help the machine run more efficiently. So
someone, because the same mind that created the problem can't be the same mind that solves it.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's like you're having someone outside of you to recognize it. It doesn't necessarily have to be you. If it's you, that'd be awesome. If someone's listening, reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I think of that. I think of kind of like, I say, like, it's boxing your identical twin. It's pretty tricky.
Yeah.
And often I find the limitation in a business owner's business is either a lack of skill or a lack of a belief system. They have some sort of thing hampering them.
Yep.
Mine's a lack of belief system at the moment, the self-worth piece. Yeah, well, I've changed my mind so many times, brother. I know how to sell. I know how to meet people. I know how to deliver the service.
Yeah.
I get a client and then I'm like, this isn't good for them.
Right, okay.
And then I say to them, what can I do for you to move on?
Yeah.
So we're good.
Okay.
So I'm just, but anyways, enough about me. So what's your closing remarks, my friend?
Hey, look, I like to talk with people about their business. So if anyone wants to just sit down and have a coffee and tell me about their business, I'd love to hear it. To business operators, running a business is challenging. There are things that they can do to, I suppose, alleviate some of those challenges. if you're a business operator who feels like every day you're just fighting fires, sometimes it might just be they might just want to offload their have someone to talk to. I'll listen, I'll talk with them, but communication in business is so important, and communication is a very much an umbrella term. It's not just about sort of writing or verbal communication. It's everything about the way in which you communicate any aspect of your business to anyone who might need to understand something about your business. So be mindful of the importance of communication, and also the importance of strategic planning and having a strategic plan that you can share with other people and that you can check yourself against in 12 months' time.
Cool. Well, you've done your first podcast. Thanks
There
for
you
coming
go.
on, brother.
Thank you.
Did it good.